the reaction of the population in Turkey, which is saying we want Turkey to keep a good democracy. That's the message that we got from the people in Turkey. We hope that the message that the Turkish delegation will bring back to Turkey is that we want to develop the democracy in Turkey. We also had a meeting with the ambassador of Turkey, which is based in Strasbourg. We also gave her the message. And we want to be able to work on the roadmap following the post-monitoring process that we started.
Why did you bring it up here? What type of pressure are you hoping that the Council of Europe is going to be able to exert?
So we have to know that the Council of Europe is 46 member states.
Yes.
Turkey is one of the founders of the Council of Europe. So it's an important member. And all the members, they have accepted to follow the Charter on Democracy, on local democracy. And where is our worry is that the member Turkey is not respecting what he agreed with the Charter of Local Democracy.
Why do you think these firings have been happening? Why do we suspect they are politically motivated?
That's what we want to see with the fact-finding mission that we will organize.
Okay.
And to see also what's happening, how it happens. Because we have the news, we have the information from the Turkish delegation, we have the information we got from the ambassador. And what we see today is that two party, DEM party and CHP party, has these kind of problems with the government, with dismissal of mayors. And we can imagine that it could be political. In the Republic of Turkey, when Atatürk developed the Republic, he was really having the wish to develop Turkey in a democratic organization similar to what we have in other countries in Europe. So we know that the founding of Turkish Republic was going in a way where the Council of Europe is comfortable.
Do you believe that İmamoğlu's arrest is part of a broader strategy to eliminate opposition ahead of the 2028 elections?
So as a co-rapporteur, I try to not imagine whatever I can imagine. Okay. I just see facts, and because if I start to go in, I could imagine that and that, I could be in trouble and I could lose my credibility, sorry.
Then what does this case reveal, though, about the erosion of democracy and law and justice in Turkey?
So today it reveals that we have almost 20 million people without elected mayors in Turkey.
Okay.
And this is not good.
No, absolutely not. What does it mean? What are the consequences of this?
That means that people may lose confidence in democracy. That means that we see many young people making exhibition in the street in Turkey, which also could mean that the young people lose confidence in politics and in democracy, and that's not good.
To what extent is Turkey still upholding the democratic values it committed to as a member of the Council of Europe?
So something really positive and impressive is that whenever we have election in Turkey, we have like 85% of people going to vote. And this is really the proof that Turkish people want to have a good democracy, and they use it. They go to vote, they go to polling station, and that's really remarkable.
On the role of the Council of Europe, does it have the power to push maybe sanctions on Turkey? What are the, let's say, like the next steps? What could they be if Turkey fails to fulfill this roadmap that you came up with?
So the Congress is one part of the Council of Europe. And regarding the measure that could be taken is a competence of Committee of Ministers. So the Congress, we do our job, we do our reports, recommendations, and after that, the Committee of Ministers could take action as they take sometimes, and also the Human Rights Court has the power to to make decisions whenever something is happening and it is not good, but it has to follow a process. You cannot just go to the court like that. You have to use already
The tools.
the tools
Yeah.
within the country. And if you are not happy or you feel this is not good, the court can take care of the problem.
Experience level. Do you consider this situation particularly alarming?
I think so, because the mayor of Istanbul is like 16 million people, and he was just arrested, put to jail. We don't feel that the process of a trial was followed, so this is quite worry. This is a worry for us. What we have as an official information from the government or from the authorities in Turkey is that the CHP party did the primary election to define the candidates for the next election, and that they got like 1.3 million ballots for İmamoğlu, and they opened the vote for the non-member of CHP, and 15 million people went to support İmamoğlu. So this is quite impressive.
How would you describe the situation in Turkey right now?
I think it's a very fast-moving situation. It's one with a great deal of tension, and it's one where we really need to know exactly what is happening on the ground to mayors who've been dismissed, Mayor İmamoğlu in particular, and also what's happening to the people on the street who are protesting.
So 2 questions. What does the Council of Europe actually expect from them?
In particular, we want to see an end to the removal of mayors, the dismissal of mayors and replacement by trustees. We don't think that that's fair or appropriate. It isn't democratic, and we want to see an end to that practice. That's something that we want to see immediately, and we want to see a restoration, really, of democratic rights and accountability for local authorities in Turkey.
How do you perceive this, from what you have observed, as an erosion of democracy and law and justice in Turkey?
Absolutely. I think that it is an erosion. It is democratic backsliding that we would recognise in the rest of Europe. I haven't been yet, as part of this work, to Turkey myself. We will be going as soon as is practicable to see for ourselves, to speak to officials and to speak to whoever we can in terms of elected representatives, to assess for ourselves where we think that backsliding and that diminution of democracy has taken the community.
May I ask, what kind of questions are you going to ask? What are you hoping to see?
We would be asking questions about exactly what I just described, which was that we don't want to see mayors removed and replaced with unelected officials. And so we would want to really understand what progress was being made with regard to reinstating mayors, if that's practicable, and reinstating the right of councils to determine their own leadership, and for that not to have been imposed on them. So those are the questions we would want to be asking immediately, plus also welfare questions about those mayors who have been detained. That is an incredibly harsh, beyond harsh punishment for people who have done nothing other than be democratically elected, and we would want to check that they were okay.
From what you have observed, would you say that the arrest of İmamoğlu was politically motivated?
I think it's difficult to make judgments without being there and asking further questions, but it certainly seems to be something with very little basis in fact from what we can see from here.
So why did you consider that this case was significant enough to prompt an urgent debate in the Council of Europe?
In fact, it wasn't the case of Mayor İmamoğlu. That actually happened after we agreed to have an urgent debate, because there have already been a number of mayors in other cities, mayors belonging to opposition parties, Mayor İmamoğlu's party, but also other parties as well, who've been dismissed. This is an ongoing issue, and this was at the heart of the piece of work that was carried out that produced the roadmap. And the fact that it's now happened in Istanbul, which is the biggest city in Turkey, I think gives it even more impetus for the debate that we're going to have.
When I was speaking to David, I asked about the rough time frame. When could we expect, should I say, progress or conclusions on this investigation?
I think it's difficult to say. I wouldn't want to raise expectations. I think the speed at which the work on the roadmap had been taken out proves to us that perhaps we have a slightly different expectation of speed. I imagine that at the moment in Turkey, the sort of normal work that would have been carried on in government is not happening because there is a crisis with people on the streets. So that may delay things as well. From our perspective, we will absolutely do what we can to achieve work straight away, and we will endeavour to visit Turkey in as soon as we can, as soon as it's practicable. We would have to have arrangements to see people when we went there, so we'd need to set that in train.
Is Turkey still upholding the democratic values it committed to as a member of the Council of Europe?
It is an incredibly important country. Its geopolitical status, where it's situated in Europe, is really important to us, and they are valued members, and were founding members of the Council of Europe, and therefore there is a great obligation on all of us to ensure that Turkey remains a democratic and thriving state.
What sort of action could the Council of Europe and the Congress take? Are we looking at sanctions, expulsion, in like a worst case scenario?
I think there obviously is evidence that the Council of Europe has been able to expel states, Russia, for example, Belarus, when they feel that the values have been breached and indeed actions have been taken that have made that outside that. Nobody is talking about that yet, about Turkey, because actually it's really important that we are able to support the country, and we can't do that if they're not in the Council of Europe. And I'm sure that there are great efforts being made to ensure that happens. But I think we will have to go back and look at what the sanctions are that we can take and make something that works for people, so that we can continue to support them within Europe.
What message is the current situation in Turkey sending to young voters?
I think one of the most interesting things is to hear direct testimony from people to say how many young people are on the street. The media reports that I've read, but also the things that people have told us this week that about young people are out there. It matters to young people, and it matters that their voice is heard, and that is incredibly powerful and impactful for older people like myself to know that young people care.
And I guess my last question, since you were involved with the debate on Georgia, do you see any similarities in this push for democracy, maybe a pattern?
I think that the similarity would be that democracy matters in Georgia, and people are prepared to go out onto the street, and that people should be allowed to campaign peacefully. I've just said in the debate myself, it's always been my privilege as a UK citizen to protest about what my government says without being afraid that I would be attacked by the state. And I think that that's something really, one of the values of the Council of Europe about peaceful protest and being able to state your opinion, that is something that we do need to look in several settings, and Georgia would be another one as well as Turkey.
Do you consider that the protests in Turkey have been sort of free? Are protesters free to...
That's something that needs testing, to be honest.
Okay.
I've seen media reports that made me question that, and that's something that we would want to try and test by going there ourselves.
Okay, when are you hoping to get there?
As soon as possible, literally as soon as possible. We need to have appointments made and arranged for us, and that takes a little time, obviously, but we will go as soon as we can.